Good evening. I'd like to call this evening's special meeting of the Kings Local Schools Board of Education to order. Mr. Morrow, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Phillips,
Here.
Ms. Groff,
Here.
Ms. Cowan,
Here.
Mr. Skirl,
Here.
Mr. Belfrom.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this evening, our agenda in this special meeting is to discuss levy information. As this is a special meeting and not a public meeting, we're going to have an open forum here with the administration and the Board of Education, and there will be no public participation this evening. If I may also add, I'd just like to share that our goal here as a board and an administration is to provide you with accurate and reliable information, verifiable information. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Sears to begin the presentation this evening.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Belfrom and Board of Education. Community members here in attendance this evening, as well as those viewing online. We just want to take a few moments just to share our appreciation for your engagement into what is happening in Kings Local School District. This is obviously an important time, and there's information that I know that we've been sharing quite frequently over the last year and a half or so. And so we're here today to have some discussions on what potential reductions would look like in the event the November 8th operating levy does not pass. But as we get going, I just have some opening remarks that I just want to talk through with our community. I just want to make it clear, the Board of Education has requested this information in an effort to be extremely transparent with our community. So they have asked us to put together information that outlines with as much specificity as we can areas that we can make reductions in the event that the levy does not pass. And I think it's only fair to our community and fair to our families and fair to our entire Kings Local School District to communicate these reductions. It's certainly not a fun conversation. It's not something that we look forward to, but it's a necessary part of the work that we do. As I have been around the community many times, we're meeting with different folks in different venues over the last year. There's a lot of pride in the school district. There's also a lot of folks made the decision to move to this district because of the schools. And so as we think through this, that we just want to be transparent in what this looks like so that people can make an informed decision on November 8th. So as we get started this evening, we're going to present a little bit about the why we're in this position, what we're asking for specifically, and then we will transition into more specifically into the reductions. So Mr. Morrow and I will tag team this presentation at the beginning, and we will allow the Board of Education anytime if you have any questions, please, we would encourage you to ask us. We have our team of folks here that are prepared to answer any questions that you may have. Next, as we think about the operating levy, and I want to talk through this piece of information. It tells a quick little story about Kings Local Schools. But first of all, the operating levy that we're looking at funds day-to-day operations. It's payroll, student services, utilities, salaries, and benefits of our staff. The levy is not for a bond issue. It's not for building buildings. So this is for operational expenditures. So in Kings, we have the top left box talks about we are projected to have a negative cash balance by July of 24. So this means that in our savings we have, by the time without new revenue, we're making reductions, we will be in a negative in 2024. 92% of our budget is spent on personnel-based costs. So we are a service industry that specializes in what I call human capital. 92% of everything we spend relates directly to some human or to some service that we provide to our students. From an expenditure standpoint, we spend less per pupil than over half of Ohio school districts, while remaining in the top 50 in overall performance. So from an efficiency and spending standpoint, we spend less per pupil than over half of the 607 school districts, but we consistently rank in the top 50 for academic performance. A challenge in Kings is that 87% of Ohio schools receive more state funding than we do. So this is a challenge for us that puts a reliance on local taxpayers to offset some lack of state revenue that we receive. That is predominantly due to property values and income levels within Kings. In preparation for this conversation and in preparation for asking for new revenue this year, as a school team, we have made $1.6 million in annual efficiency reductions without affecting student services or the services that we provide for our students. So those reductions were made for this year that have helped us essentially ask for less money than what was originally asked for last summer. We were originally last summer, the board took the step one to put a 6.9 mil levy on the ballot, but then made a decision later on not to follow through with step two. And through those efficiencies, we're able to come back a year later and actually ask for less money than we did the year before. So what does this mean for the taxpayers in Kings? $18.67 a month per $100,000 true value home. So this is what your home is appraised for on the true cost value on the county auditor's website, not what you can sell your house for. And it's not an insignificant amount of money. And we recognize that. So as we move forward, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Morrow, and he's going to talk more about what 6.4 means.
So just some generalities about this levy. Mr. Sears mentioned that we spend efficiently. 351 districts in the state of Ohio spend less money per student than we do, and we're consistently ranked in the top 50. We looked at many metrics when we were looking at King's comparisons to other districts in the state and in our 4-county area. That's kind of a broad overarching theme. The last levy was supposed to last for 3 years. We believe our efficiencies and some of the cost saving initiatives that we're proud of, because they actually benefit the staff in some scenarios, helped extend that levy to 6 years. As Mr. Sears said, the 6.4 mils that we're asking for this year is actually less than what the board took the first step to put on last year. So we're pretty proud that we were able to accomplish that as a school. And this levy's in line with past levies. In 2016, we passed a levy for 6.2 mils, and in 2010, 6.9. And then the third bullet point we think is important. Current projections have this levy lasting 3 years conservatively. If the levy does pass, it'll be our work these next few years to extend that levy past the 3 years. So along those lines of facts about the levies, we wanted to point out a few misconceptions. We've been meeting with folks to talk about information about this levy, and we're getting some common questions and common confusions that we wanted to put out to everybody. So this levy is the same as the last two in 2019 and 2020. That is not the case. In 2019 and 2020, the district was asking for a levy related to facilities improvements and construction. This levy supports our day-to-day operations. Mr. Sears mentioned that 92% of our budget is personnel based. So this levy, 92% of that money will be towards personnel based expenditures. Misconception, we receive more money from levies as property values increase. Kings has seen a lot of property value increase in the last 6 years or so. The district does not benefit from that property value increase. State law brings down the tax rate, so we collect no more than we did the year before. Another misconception, King's revenue has increased significantly since 2017. 2018 was actually the first year that we fully collected the 2016 levy. And since that year, our revenue's only grown 3% a year. Cost of living's over 4%, and we've also added nearly 400 kids to K-12. So why do we need an operating levy now? Point 3 on here is about state revenues. This is our second largest revenue source. We're projected to get no more than we get right now from the state of Ohio for the foreseeable future. The current funding formula has us on the guarantee. That means that we're guaranteed to get this amount unless the formula calculates we should get more. And based on high property values and high incomes compared to the state average, the state isn't going to give us any more under the current formula. And along those lines, we are the lowest funded per pupil in Warren County. So we like to point that out. King's is under fiscal oversight by the Ohio Department of Education. I think this is an important point because of our low cash balance and our declining cash balance. We're in pretty frequent communications with the state of Ohio, and we have actually submitted a plan on what we're going to do to remedy that issue. Plan A is to pass a levy this year. Plan B is to make significant reductions to eliminate our deficit. And I know, board, we've been talking about this for several months now. So this is kind of a recap, but anything, please ask. $7 million. That's an important number for King's. Next school year, we're projecting to spend $7 million more than we bring in. So without new revenues, we'll need to decrease our expenses by $7 million just to break even and balance the budget. As I mentioned, we have a declining cash balance, and we're getting to the point where we're below any metric for the amount of cash an organization our size should have. We finished last fiscal year with just over $11 million, which is a lot of money, but we're projected to spend over $62 million this year. And just to quantify what $7 million looks like, that's approximately 70 staff members that are impacted if we do have to make the reductions.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I have some questions written down from the community that have been emailed to me and texted and things like that. Before we move on, I've had this question multiple times. What exactly does the 7.5 million go to? And I think what people are asking is they don't really understand how public schools do a 5-year forecast. Could you briefly explain that without going into too much depth so people can understand that we're not trying to do new things. We're trying to keep up our same standard.
Absolutely. So a 5-year forecast in school finance, we're required to file a report with the Ohio Department of Education twice a year, where we're trying to look out 5 years. I will say that primarily the first 2 years are much better projection than looking out 5. During the last forecast that was filed, we were projecting to have a $7 million deficit next school year. And there really hasn't been any substantial changes that would make us think that that information is incorrect. So on the presentation here, you can click on that 7 million and it'll take you to the most recently submitted forecast where it shows our estimated revenues, our estimated expenses. And a lot of work goes into making accurate assumptions with the information that we have at that time. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and as a public school, who's required to have a 5-year forecast besides Kings?
Everybody does one. And based on your financial state depends on how much you talk to the Department of Education about the forecast that was submitted. So as I mentioned, we have a declining cash balance and we're estimated to have negative cash at the end of the next school year. So we have quite a few conversations with them.
Thank you.
So, sorry, as we begin to look at reductions, can you go back one slide very quickly, Mr. Morrow? I just want to make a few things clear as we start to talk through what this looks like. So $7 million for us is a significant amount of money. It's challenging to find $7 million without impacting staff and students and student experiences within our school district. So in order to do that, when we start to look at how we acquire $7 million, we've taken a wholesale look across every aspect of the school district to look not just within our teaching staff, but also within support staff, services that we provide, and even potential revenue generation opportunities. So what we're going to outline for you is these will be recommendations that we would make to the board if we are in a position to do that are pretty comprehensive, that impact a lot of offerings, programs, services, and current operational practices for our students. I just want to remind everyone that the levy itself is intended to maintain the high quality services that we have. It's not to add. So if we're going to make reductions, the reductions are going to impact current programs. So as I outline these, some of the rationale, we're going to outline what we currently offer. We're going to outline the change as a result of that reduction and the impact on the dollar figure for us as we try to acquire $7 million and identify $7 million worth of reductions. So the first one we'll talk about are transportation reductions. These follow the guardrails that we have established on the fact sheet that's been on our website for a while. That we have talked through. There are guardrails there, which we talked about transportation. We'll get a little more specific with this. So currently, students in grades K through 12 are bused each day by Peterman Transportation. We are also busing to private and parochial schools throughout the area and within a 30-mile radius. If the levy would fail, the impact would be that we would shift towards a state minimum transportation model. This includes eliminating busing for grades 9 through 12 and our private high schools and implementing 2-mile walk zones for grades K through 8. This equates to a $1.65 million reduction towards that $7 million.
What does that do for other private schools in our district, for example, SMOY?
Yeah, Mr. Lucky, do you want to?
Absolutely. So we would follow the same outline as we do here for Kings. So SMOY would be a 2-mile walk zone. Just to explain, a 2-mile walk zone is basically door to door, 2-mile radius to get there. So if a SMOY student lived in Kings district and was 2 miles, within 2 miles, they would need to provide their own transportation or walk.
How many bus routes do we currently run?
Currently, we're at 47 routes, which includes the parochials, career center, all of our buses.
Okay, and if we go to the state minimum to save this 1.65 million, how many bus routes is that?
We would lose roughly 20 routes. So we'd be down to about 27.
Do you know how the state makes that decision that high schoolers are not included in that? I mean, like in our situation, our high school and our junior high are connected. So why would we not provide that for our high schoolers?
To realize the savings in that, to follow that state minimum, we would have more junior high kids on the bus. So the route itself would grow. to have more junior high students, to eliminate the high school students off the route. So route sizes would grow. We'd have more junior high kids to drive that total route number down.
So that would be longer time on the bus for the students.
Correct.
Other questions about transportation? Next, we'll discuss extracurricular activities. Excuse me. Currently, there are no paid to participate fees for athletics, clubs, and activities in Kings. We offer a wide variety of opportunities in athletics, academic, and artistic clubs and activities. It's highly encouraged, promoted, and we want our students actively involved within our school district. If the levy failure impact would be that Kings High School and Kings Junior High athletes would pay up to $600 per sport. The rationale behind that is you use your gate fees, your participation fees, and your gate proceeds to cover the athletic program's entire costs. So basically, athletics becomes self-funding. It's a similar model to what we currently have within food service. The food service department in Kings Local Schools is entirely funded and run based on food sales that they have each day. There is not a general fund expenditure for food service. This would be a very similar setup to what athletics would work towards with a participation fee. We would also implement participation fees for academic and musical/artistic extracurriculars, while also making some decisions around reduction of teams, clubs, or activities, ultimately to drive that cost down. So this impact is approximately an $800,000 revenue generation, but that equates to an $800,000 benefit to our general fund. Because right now, all of these activities and clubs and supplemental positions are paid through out of the general fund expenditures.
How do you come up with the up to $600 fee?
Yeah,
So we looked at how many participants we had last year and tried to estimate what the cost would be to cover all supplementals for coaches' salaries and then also transportation cost. And so if you take the number of kids and that $600, you get up to the 800,000 needed.
Yeah. Thank you.
How will decisions be made on what teams, clubs, and activities to reduce? Will it be based on the amount of participation in those particular activities?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So we would look at activities or clubs that have low participation rates or are multiple. It's a team, maybe a B team that with low participation rates, we would look at those and analyze. And that's the same thing for some of our extracurriculars. Again, the goal would be to self-fund. And so we have to ensure that the participation levels match the ability to be able to do that.
So if I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So if I'm a mom of 3 kids and I have one child that plays 2 sports, there's 2 sports, and then I have another child that plays another sport and maybe is in math team, and then I have another child that maybe is in band or theater. We're looking at $1,800 plus math and band and theater. I mean, we're looking at around $2,000 out of pocket. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Janelle asked what I was going to, no question here.
What about the students that can't afford that fee?
So we would have to make a decision on what we wanted to do for those students. It is an optional activity. So the board would have to decide whether or not we wanted to fund that fee.
Other questions about athletics, extracurriculars?
Can you tell us the schools that this would affect when you say extracurriculars? Obviously, the high school and the junior high, but the other schools?
Cindy?
I would imagine it would impact Columbia, the band program, orchestra program. And thinking of the elementary schools, I know that they have student council, student leadership teams, different leadership opportunities for kids, K through 4. Just to name a few.
The next is a facility rental fee. So as we outlined at the beginning, some of this is revenue generation to offset what would be personnel impacts. And so currently, as we look at a rental fee, currently we charge non-school sponsored organizations for the cost of the custodial fee just to use the facilities. So outside organizations not affiliated with Kings are charged a rental fee based on the facility use form. Levy failure impact would be the facility use agreement would be modified and applied to any non-school sponsored individual group utilizing our facilities. The fees would cover the entire cost to staff and maintain the district facilities. So this is a $50,000 revenue generation. Again, the revenue generation is identified there because it prevents a reduction from a staff member within the district.
What organizations are currently using our schools that aren't school sponsored?
Very few. The big ones that do use it that fall into line with that cost of custodial only would be like your youth KBA basketball, volleyball. We ran the numbers today, just for KBA, for instance. They'd look at an additional $25,000 fee to use the facilities if they used them at the same rate that they did in the years past.
Is our current operations, is that kind of standard language for how most districts rent out facilities?
Yes.
The next, we identified custodial services. So currently we're utilizing in-house and Alpha and Omega custodial services to provide daily cleaning to classrooms and facilities throughout the district. If the levy failure impact, we would move towards an every other day cleaning model within the classrooms and buildings, identifying approximately $100,000 reduction to our custodial services.
And so with that, Mr. Lucky, Sears, be fair to assume, but, you know, obviously any sort of on-demand requirements for custodial, what would that be? Just an ad hoc expense?
Our day shift people, our in-house people would still remain. We need those people during the school day for lunches and breakfast cleanup and those kind of things. This would affect our after hours, second shift folks more than anything.
Okay.
Would that include restroom cleaning only being every other day?
We would have touch points that we would hit every day, but as far as it would be a more quick evening clean for classrooms, pulling trash, moving on. But from a sanitary safety, we would hit bathrooms on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Next, we have identified, we're considering this other staffing reductions. We currently have cafeteria and recess aides in our elementaries covering lunch and recesses. We have instructional coaches that focus on providing support resources and leadership for teachers. They do a lot of teacher training, teacher coaching. We have technology support positions as we've integrated a significant amount of technology, those positions provide daily support for network and student access and teacher access. And then we have administrative positions throughout the district in buildings, operations, and student programming. The levy failure impacts, we would look to reduce the cafeteria and recess aid positions. Our teachers and administrators would need to monitor the cafeteria. Reductions of coaches decreases teacher support and growth in instructional practices. We would reduce technology support, which would impact prevention and response to daily technology issues. And then we would look to reduce administrative positions throughout the district. The impact on that is approximately an $800,000 reduction.
And so with the first item there, Mr. Sears, so then we're looking at the scenario where we would have less people monitoring the cafeterias and recesses as we continue to see this enrollment growth.
That's correct.
Okay.
Can you explain the second bullet point a little bit further? The reduction of coaches decreases teacher support. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Certainly. And I'll start and then I'll lob it over here to our teaching and learning team. But currently we have two instructional coaches within our district. One of them is an elementary math coach that works with our math teachers throughout the district. She's played a vital role in implementation of improving our gifted instruction and practices. And she's done a lot of work with math teachers K to 4. Anything to expand on?
Yeah, okay. We also have, so that's, is that on here? So that explains the math coach elementary. Then we also have a technology coach that works with us from everything from assistive technology for our special education students to any type of coaching a teacher might want around any of our educational programs, whether that be something as easy as figuring out Clever for the MD classroom to a larger item a teacher might want to do with their whole classroom. So those two coaches are the ones we currently have right now.
Okay, so we're going to shift gears just a hair. So what we identified in the first few reductions, those are reductions that obviously there's a lot. There are many things that have been analyzed. It's a lot of things that have not impacted the student's experience or in the classroom. So what we provided you to start with is a roadmap for reductions around areas that, again, don't impact the student experience. So as we move into this one, the next phase of these are reductions in programs and services that will change the student experience. And I'll caution as we continue to move forward here, the reductions identified in this next section, truthfully are around humans and teachers and people that are providing great support within our classrooms right now. These are reductions that are going to be felt by students, be felt by staff, but I caution our community and in the discussions we're having, we're quick to note a dollar figure, but I think we have to keep in mind that behind that dollar figure, there is an adult right now that's doing tremendous work with our students within our district. So I just share that because as we're announcing these tonight, we know tomorrow there are people that may be at risk on the list above in what we're going to talk about, but they're going to show up tomorrow and they're going to do amazing work for our kids. And so we need to be respectful of that, but I do just want to point that out as we move forward. So the first one is a reduction of full day kindergarten. Again, we are trying to acquire $7 million of reductions. It's not easy. We're into direct student impact. So currently we offer full day kindergarten program for 389 students, including opportunities for specials classes each day. The levy failure impact would be, we would move from a full day program to a half day program. And we would not be offering specials for kindergarten students for that half day that they're here. The net reduction there is $675,000.
How many hours would that be for each kindergartner? So right now, full day, they go, what, 9:30-ish to 3-ish. How much classroom time would they have in half-day kindergarten compared to full day?
I think you guys know, 'cause it's about approximately 3 hours, correct?
So 3 hours of instruction time.
That's correct.
So I assume the reduction is because we will have less kindergarten teachers and they'll teach twice a day. So how many reduction of teachers are we looking at here in kindergarten?
So your first part of your question is correct. Teacher will teach in the morning and in the afternoon. So they'll have two groups of kindergarten teachers. Currently, there are 18 kindergarten teachers within our district. A move to half day would be a reduction of 9.
How will this impact the bus routes for the students when we go from full day to half?
We just add 2 sides of middays. So we do a drop and then a pickup. And then on the back end in the afternoon, in the morning coming in, they would be part of that tier. And then the same thing in the afternoon.
So, Mr. Lucky, how does that impact a kindergartner who's within a 2-mile radius?
They're walking
They have to walk or find.
or find transportation.
The next is a class size increase. So this is something we've monitored. We continue to monitor. Mr. Spinner works with our administrators and our teachers in the hiring practices to ensure that we have class sizes that are, at a level where we can provide tremendous support to kids. So currently in grades 1 through 4, this is collectively among all 3 buildings, grades 1 through 4, on average, there are 23.4 students per class. That's a division problem, total enrollment, teachers divide. We know there are some fluctuations in variety in that. There may be some that might be a little less, there might be some that might be more, but there's a little bit of variety there. Same thing with grades 5 and 6. We currently average 26.5 students per class. Again, that may have some variety from individual class to the next one. 7 and 8, we're around 26 per students per class. And then at the high school, we're approximately 26 in many of our core, but then there's a lot of variation to class sizes in the high school based on the elective offerings and how many students actually have chosen to take that certain elective. Levy failure impact in grades 1 through 6, we'd increase class sizes to 28 per class. Grades 7 and 8 would increase to 30. And grades 9 through 12 would increase class sizes to 30. In core classes, depending on elective course, could be more. Again, that's going to be that's a variation and somewhat dependent on how many students actually take certain course. So it's harder at the high school to put a definitive number because a lot of times we will have to respond to the course selection process. The reduction is a $675,000 reduction.
Mr. Sears, I realize that some of our classrooms across the district are smaller than others. Will that impact the numbers?
So to answer your question, yes, but it'll also challenge how we place and schedule kids throughout the district. So if our class size is raised to a certain level, say 30 in 7th and 8th grade, that'll put a stress on the teachers and the administrators to find appropriate space for those individual classrooms.
Thank you.
And this reduction, it's in the form of teachers, correct? As
That-
far as the savings that we'd realized.
That's correct.
And I know we've talked about it before, but for anyone who hasn't heard these discussions, can you just go into briefly when we start looking at teacher positions, what's the decision on who would need to be reduced, for lack of a better word?
Yep, absolutely. So I'm going to allow Mr. Spinner to answer that question, as he is an expert in the reduction in force process.
Thank you. Our collective bargaining agreement with KEA clearly spells out in Article 9, our reduction in force procedures. It begins within that affected area. So if it were kindergarten, we would potentially be looking at pre-K through 3 certifications. We would look first at those teachers with limited contracts earlier on in their career, typically less seniority. It would also incorporate their performance through OTES 2.0. And then if we were not able to make as many reductions as we would need within the limited teacher category, it would move on to continuing, those with continuing contracts. Same deal, continuing contracts, seniority and performance. And recall would occur in that reverse order. So if we were to need those teachers back due to growth in the future, then there would be a recall process inside of 12 months.
It talks about here in high school about possibly higher than 30 in the elective courses. For those elective courses where we typically have lower enrollment, would we just eliminate those classes altogether?
That's correct. Yeah, we would set a benchmark there that if an enrollment or a course selection didn't reach a certain benchmark, then we would not offer the course. Next is special education. So currently in Kings, we have 644 Kings students on an individualized education plan. They're served by 51 intervention specialists and 98 paraprofessionals with lower caseloads than the state maximum. The levy failure impact is we would look to increase the caseloads for intervention specialists that move that closer to the state maximum based on the environment that the teacher and students are working in. That is a $300,000 reduction.
Do we have an idea what the delta would be there with intervention specialists and the paraprofessionals?
So when we looked at the caseloads, we looked at our current caseloads, right? So we can't, new student coming in or something would change this. But currently, if you look at the caseloads, what we'd have to decide is, right now, we always leave a little bit of room, especially at the beginning of the year for new students, especially with maybe some different behavior, academic, physical needs. We always buffer those rooms because our caseloads are very different across the board. An MD classroom is different than a behavior room, than a SOCOM, than a preschool, than itinerant. We have lots of caseloads we deal with. So in looking at that, we always try to give a little bit of space. What we would do is we would just probably not give that amount of space. And when we looked at that across the board right now, you're looking probably at 3 to 5 teachers. And that could be half in an elementary and half in a different elementary, but we would spread it out to try to figure out how to best serve.
What is the state maximum, Mrs. Martin?
Depends on what you're asking.
Oh,
So,
for the,
so like the
yeah.
typical special ed caseload for a typical K through 8 is 16 students, 9 through 12 is 24. An MD classroom is 8. There are different preschool classrooms, so they could be anywhere from 8 to 5. Itinerant is different. A behavior classroom is different. So the regs, when we create a classroom or look at classrooms, we just have to follow that specific student's category in that classroom. Very hands-on.
Next, we have in the K-6 environment, a reduction of specials/enrichment opportunities for kids. So currently, we offer specials in PE, art, music, STEM, and our media center. At each building, there are reading teachers, English language learning teachers, and associated tutors. In grades 5 and 6, we do have a gifted instructor that does pull out gifted instruction. A note is our ESL population continues to grow and has grown from 102 students to 330 8 students since 2016. So a significant increase that we've seen in our ESL population that is stressing our system and being able to adequately support the kids under current staffing levels. When we look at a levy failure impact, there would be a reduction of offerings and the frequency of specials classes throughout the K-6 environment. We would look to reduce the pull-out gifted instruction and the gifted coordinator support that we contract with. We would also be looking to reduce reading and ESL tutors throughout the district. That nets a $700,000 reduction.
Mr. Sayers, can you paint a little bit of a picture of what you mean by frequency? Like, let's just take music class in elementary school. Let's use that as an example. How could that be different than what our kids are used to right now?
So currently our students have music every week. So each one of the specials listed on the top line, they have that once a week. When we talk about a reduction of frequency, that might extend to be once every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. We would use our staff in a different way to reduce the amount of time that kids are able to participate in that, if we're able to. And so that's something that we would continue to look at, because we may not be able to offer all of those. And then the ones we do, it would be spread out over a longer period of time. So the amount of touch points, so our kids approximately 36 touch points in each one of those specials, that would be reduced significantly, how many times they would actually participate in that.
And then gifted, we just had this in a recent board meeting that we had could you explain that?
So, excuse me, so currently we provide gifted services for students in grades 4 through 8 in math. And so gifted services are provided by teachers who are given specific training around gifted education to understand the characteristics of gifted learners and to better understand how to meet their needs in the classroom. So the superior COG students that we identify, we would not be able to serve them as we do currently at Columbia Intermediate, and we would need to really rethink how we're meeting the needs of that end on the learning continuum for those students.
I'd also add that when we looked at the support that we have with the current gifted coordinator, there are rules around professional development for our teachers that teach gifted that we would have to rethink, because we wouldn't have that coordinator any longer.
And refresh my memory, we have approximately 1,400 gifted students identified.
So we identify
Total?
students, just to clarify, we identify 3 times a year when we give the MAP assessment in reading and math. And then we identify in grades 2 and 4 for superior COG. And after our last round of identification in the fall, we had 1,150 gifted students.
Thank you.
I would like to note at the outset of this presentation, Mr. Sears talked about the people that are behind these numbers. I mentioned earlier when we talked about reduction in force, I gave a pre-K through 3 teacher example. So a teacher in kindergarten might be reduced and they may have opportunities within pre-K through 3, or they may have additional certification such as a 4 or 5 endorsement. Unfortunately for our specials teachers, our physical education, art, music, and so forth, they will have the likelihood of them having less opportunities is very high. So the opportunity for them to displace someone in another category is low.
Next, at our junior high, Kings Junior High currently operates on an academic team approach. So there's 4 teachers, 1 each content. and they operate in a team. Those students see just those teachers each day. The Kings Junior High offers a variety of elective courses, including some for high school credit and classes that give students an opportunity to experience things that they're passionate about or areas of interest. The levy failure impact, Kings Junior High would look to eliminate an academic teaming structure and move to more of a traditional junior high schedule. There would be a reduction of elective options as a result. And we would be looking to eliminate Spanish and health for high school credit. So currently our students who are in 8th grade can take Spanish and receive high school credit and can take health and receive high school credit. Through the elimination of the teaming structure, moving to a junior high, the reduction of opportunities and elective options for kids significantly decreases. And those are some of the result. It's a $450,000 reduction.
And what are some of the electives that may go away?
Pulling those up right now. So at Kings Junior High, some of the electives that may go away are some orchestra sectional positions. We have sectional classes for orchestra percussion, character and leadership courses that are taught for students. We do have some health and PE options, but we would only offer one of those options. Computers, technology. And I mentioned the Spanish and health as well.
There be an impact, or should I ask, what is the potential impact of moving from the academic teaming structure to a traditional structure within our junior high facility? Is that problematic just because of the space issues we have, or would that be, I guess is my question.
So I wouldn't position it as a space issue, but I would position it a what's best for students issue. Because in a teaming structure, you have those 4 content area teachers. They work with those, let's say 100 students every single day. They get to know them, they build relationships, they have common time. They can collaborate to a much more significant level and do some common intercurricular, interdisciplinary lessons because they share all of the same students. So in a traditional junior high schedule, you think about 6 or 7 period day, kids are bouncing around the building with no connectivity to an individual group or a team structure. So culturally, it's really strong for students because each one of those teams has their own identity. And they really spend a significant amount of time building relationships with kids and collaborating around if a kid is struggling in one content area, they're maybe struggling in another, and teachers have the opportunity to collaborate and, okay, what are you doing and how can we help this student? So without that, you lose a lot of the ability for collaboration. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Mr. Spinner.
That's incredibly close to my heart. The middle school philosophy is something that is heavily researched by the Association for Middle Level Education as what is best for our young adolescents, especially at that age level as they're working through school. And Columbia and the junior high do it very well.
And then last, Kings High School and the course offerings that are impacted. Currently at Kings High School, we have opportunities for students to experience learning through a wide variety of coursework that prepares them for college and career. Currently at Kings High School, we require 23 credits for graduation. Levy failure impact, we would move towards a state minimum of 20 credits for graduation. That reduction, it would produce a reduction in each content area that impacts approximately 30 electives, 7 AP courses, advanced courses, and courses valuable on student transcripts. A note also from moving to a state minimum of graduation requirements, It limits students' ability to graduate with an honors diploma. In Kings, that's an important thing. We've had about 120 students the last couple of years that have graduated with an honors diploma. With the reduction of elective, especially upper level elective options, it makes that a little more challenging for students to have the necessary requirements for an honors diploma. So I put that because that's an impact on students for this. We're looking at approximately an $825,000 reduction for the levy failure impact.
That also eliminate the volunteer as far as those hours that students receive and that work that goes on.
For the community service requirement, I think that's something as a board and administration, we can have that discussion. It's not included in this presentation as a reduction, as it, we're looking for changes that impact the budget. And so with that, I think we could have more discussion around that, but it's not included in this.
And that 825,000 number, just like the junior high 450,000 number, that's people, right?
Those are staff members. And so at Kings, at the high school, it's 13, it's over 13 teachers. So the focus with this would be the focus on the core content. When we say state minimum, those are courses, are the entire focus in the decision-making process are courses that lead our kids to graduation. What it eliminates are courses that enables our students to personalize the learning experience, to have advanced coursework, explore areas of passion, and frankly, some reduction of our AP courses as well. And the reductions aren't necessarily because there's lack of enrollment in these courses. It's the focus becomes courses that are identified that meet a graduation requirement. Because we've eliminated or we're moving to the state minimum of 20, your focus has to become on courses that strictly allow for that credit. And it takes away some of the personalized approach for kids.
I guess I just want to know what the ramifications are for being competitive with other local schools. How do we compete with a Mason student that offers 25 AP classes? How do we compete with a Sycamore student that offers this many AP classes? I just don't know. I'm giving my opinion, sorry, but I just don't know how we set our high schooler it's up for success to find not only their passion, but to be competitive out in the workplace. That's devastating. Not that the other slides weren't.
I believe that the approach at Kings High School, and I know some of our administrators are in the room and many of them are sitting at this table. The approach at Kings High School is to do exactly that. It's to create a highly competitive, balanced educational experience for kids so they can experience learning in ways that enables them to move on to four-year college if that's what interests them, or we are growing in our ability to give kids the ability to explore opportunities that aren't 2- and 4-year college, that are directly into the trades. And so in a highly competitive, highly 21st century personalized high school, I know why these were put in place. Courses are put in place to benefit kids, that gives them the experience and the opportunities beyond the walls of our school district. Without those, it changes the experience. It changes the transcript. And that as colleges and universities are not requiring standardized tests as much, they're analyzing coursework significantly. And so I would have to believe it has some impact. Other questions? So in summary, and so we'll close this piece. I've summarized this because we've talked about a lot of things, but I think it's important to see see kind of summarized programs that will be impacted by cost reductions. And so transportation, kindergarten, extracurriculars, athletics, music, specials, gifted, special education, reading support, ESL support, STEM, AP courses, computer science and engineering, workforce development, world language, leadership development, and potentially impacting an honors diploma. That, I think it's important for the board to see the net impact on how it impacts the student experience. So lastly, I
Can
think.
I ask a question
Yeah, go
before we
ahead.
move to the next one?
100%.
So one thing I don't see on here is safety. Will the safety of our children be impacted at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you bringing that up, Mr. Skrull. One thing that we've committed to, and it's been on our fact sheet and in the reductions, that we have not identified safety or mental wellness personnel or programming as a cost savings or a reduction. It was on our fact sheet from day one. We would look to, even if the levy does not pass, we will maintain safety, the current levels of safety and the current levels of wellness personnel and programming. I don't believe we need to be sacrificing the safety and wellness of our students in this as a result. So those are not factored into this. They're not included. I would say that if the levy passes, we would look to grow that more. I don't think we're at the level where we need to be. And as we know, the mental health of our students is continuing to grow in importance, and we would look to continue to grow those types of programs. So the last thing I'll say, and then we will close for this evening, is what happens if it passes. In fairness to the conversation, we'd look to maintain the high quality academic and extracurricular programs that make Kings a desirable place to live, work, learn, and grow. That includes competitive first-class academic offerings, renowned music, art, and theater programs, academic supports for student learning, personalized learning instructional approaches. We'd look to maintain current staffing levels. We would increase our safety and mental wellness personnel. We continue to work to prepare our students for careers and college, and it would enable us to continue to attract and retain world-class instructional talent. So with that, we appreciate you as a board engaging into what would be recommendations that if the levy does not pass, but also identifying kind of where we are, that we would maintain a lot of these things that we have in our current operational practices. For our community and for our folks in attendance, we really appreciate your engagement. We appreciate the fact that you care about this school district in so many ways. And we hope you found the information helpful for you as you work to make a decision for yourselves as we head towards the November 8th election. So, Mr. Beltram.
Sorry, I'm a little under the weather. I don't want to cough in the mic the whole time. Thank you, Mr. Sears. I did have one thing I'd like to go back to, because I got this question, as Mrs. Groff we mentioned earlier, we're getting a lot of questions. Mr. Morrow, can you just kind of expound a little bit on the misconception about the money we receive from levies? It's my understanding, because the community votes on these levies, we simply cannot take in more than the community voted for us to collect, correct? Even as property values increase.
That is correct. So there was a law passed in the 1970s in the state of Ohio called House Bill 920. And basically that says when you pass a levy for, we'll call it 6.4 mils, as property values increase, the rate goes down. So an example is our 2016 levy was passed at 6.2 mils. It's collecting at 4.8 mils because the rate has had to go down to collect the same amount while property value is increased. Does that help clarify?
Yes, it does. Thank you. With that, did anyone have any more questions or?
I just had a question. If somebody viewing this presentation has any follow-up questions, is there a particular forum that we could recommend they go to, or should they contact the school board? How would they go about getting their questions answered?
Either one of us are a great place to start. Both of our contact information is all over the website. We have a levy FAQ on the website. We have our fact sheet that will be expanding and adding more information based on the presentation tonight. And as we get questions, we'll continue to add information that's available for everyone. And I would encourage anyone who wants to dig into any of this anymore to reach out to us. We can either point you in the right direction, give you the answer. Yeah, we would be a good place to start.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
As with all of our board meetings, this one will be placed online so people can go back and view it again.
That's correct. Yes, it's recorded. It's online. It's on our district YouTube page. And we'll also link this presentation. We'll have all the information out there.
So before we adjourn, I'd just like to thank the community that's here in person, folks watching. And I would also hope or ask that you appreciate that I know there's been a lot of questions about the granularity of this meeting. And as Mr. Sears had mentioned prior to the presentation, I hope you can appreciate that there are real people behind these decisions, and they're watching this. And the last thing we want to do is drill down, to a person by person level. It's not very easy to do. It's sobering up here because this is challenging, but we have a responsibility to give you the information. As my colleagues just mentioned, please reach out to the district office, to us, to your administrative staff, to your building leads for that information. I must say, there's a lot of conjecture, there's a lot of rumor, there's a lot of inaccurate information within, the grapevine that's posted online. If you want the source of the information and the data, please reach out to the district because we have an obligation as a board. They have an obligation as officials here who represent all of you to provide you with the most accurate and reliable information possible. We have to give that to you. And we want to equip everyone with said information so that you can make an informed decision. Our goal is not to tell you what to do, but there are a lot of challenging things, questions that come in, and quite frankly, they're just incorrect. And we want you to have the correct data, so that you can make decisions for yourself, for your family, for the community. As you can see, there are a lot of decisions to make. So I would just ask, share the YouTube with the community, with others, and we have our open discussion and our dialogue concerning it. We can agree to disagree, we can agree to agree, but we want to operate from a base of facts and the appropriate data when we make these decisions. So with that, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
I will make that motion.
I'll second the motion. Mr.
Ms.
Morrow.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skirl,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
This evening's meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.